I am Noah, and I never imagined I would share something like this, but after what happened to me, I cannot remain silent. I was an ordinary teenager, focused on school, friends, and my phone. Faith wasn't something I thought about often, but on the day I died, everything changed. What I saw, what I heard, was real and terrifying. I was dead for only a few minutes, but in that time, Jesus showed me things that shook my being. This is my story, and if you're listening, please pay attention. Time is running out. It was just another ordinary day. Nothing special, nothing different. I woke up to my mom calling me for breakfast, as she did every morning. I groaned, pulled the blanket over my head, and scrolled through my phone for a few more minutes before dragging myself out of bed. Just another Monday. I got dressed, grabbed my backpack, and left the house. The morning was cold, but I barely noticed. My mind was elsewhere, texting, weekend plans, school drama. If you asked me what I was thinking about, it definitely wasn't God. I wasn't against faith or anything, but I wasn't exactly the praying type. Church was just something I endured for my mom's sake. As I walked to school, I had no idea I was just a few hours away from crossing a line from which most people never return. Lunch was, as usual, noisy, full of people talking at once. My best friend made a joke, and we laughed until our stomachs hurt. It was a good moment, but one I barely remember now because after lunch everything took a turn I could never have expected. I was standing near my locker when I heard someone calling me. It was my friend from class, waving for me to go outside with him. I slammed the locker door and ran to catch up with him. We were crossing the parking lot when I heard screeching tires. I turned my head just in time to see a huge truck coming towards me. My friend screamed. I had no time to react, no time to run, and then, impact. A force like nothing I had ever felt hit me, lifting me off the ground. Pain exploded through my body, the world spun, everything blending into a blur of noise and movement, then, silence. For a moment, I thought time had stopped. The sky above me was frozen, the people around me still. But something was wrong. I no longer felt cold, nor was I touching the ground. I looked down and saw my own body lying there, twisted, lifeless. My friend was screaming. People were running to help, but I was no longer there. I was floating above, watching everything unfold like a scene from a movie. Then I felt it, something pulling me. It wasn't gentle, it was strong, relentless. I was being dragged, pulled towards something I couldn't see. At that moment, I knew I was dead. The moment I realized I was dead, the world around me lost all its familiarity. The sensation of being pulled by an invisible force was overwhelming, and I had no control over my fate. The darkness around me was suffocating, like I was being dragged into a bottomless abyss. But then, a light appeared, breaking through the darkness with a force I had never experienced before. It was a living, bright, and penetrating light, and at its center, a figure I instantly recognized. It was Jesus. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, but I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that I was in the presence of a divine force. The light emanated from him with an intensity that pierced through everything, exposing every thought, every action, every part of who I was. There was no hiding anything. Jesus looked directly at me, and in that look, I felt everything: love, sadness, and disappointment. I wanted to fall to my knees and beg for mercy, but I had no control over myself. I was completely exposed before him. Jesus finally spoke. His voice was deep, full of authority and power. "Noah, do you know why you are here?" I tried to respond, but no sound came out of my mouth. He didn't wait for an answer. Instead, he raised his hand, and suddenly, I was seeing my entire life flash before my eyes. Every moment, every choice, every sin I committed. It was like watching a movie, but I felt everything, every emotion, every consequence. Jesus wasn't punishing me, he was showing me the truth. The visions changed and I saw something different, something frightening. A world in flames, people screaming, Darkness spreading across the earth like a plague. Worst of all, people walking towards it willingly. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. And then, Jesus said something I'll never forget: "This is what's coming." As Jesus uttered those words, the light around us disappeared and I was thrown back into darkness. This wasn't ordinary darkness. It was thick, suffocating, alive. I felt a cold that wasn't just physical, but that penetrated my soul. I wasn't alone, at first. I just felt the shapes in the shadows moving beyond my vision. Then, I heard whispers, low and guttural laughs, words I couldn't fully understand, but knew were evil. A deep, distorted voice spoke directly to me: "You don't belong here yet." I spun around, trying to find the source, but there was no direction, no up or down. I was floating in an endless abyss. Suddenly, I started falling. The pit swallowed me whole, and the further I fell, the worse it got. The whispers turned into screams, cries of agony and despair. The shadows turned into twisted, contorted figures, reaching for me, trying to drag me further down. The smell of burning flesh and decay filled the air. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Deep down, I knew where I was, a place I'd always heard about in church, but never believed was real. I was in hell. I knew where I was. I had heard about it in church, but never believed it was real. The flames around me were endless, the screams, a cacophony of pain and despair. I saw faces contorting in the flames, some in fury, others in sadness. I recognized people I knew, schoolmates, people I'd only met in passing. Their eyes met mine, begging for help, but I could do nothing. It was then that I heard a familiar voice. "Noah, help me." It was a friend, someone I laughed and joked with, someone who, like me, never took faith seriously. I saw his face, he saw mine, and in his eyes, I saw something I will never forget: regret, a pain so deep, so overwhelming that it swallowed all other emotions. Instinctively, I reached out to him, but something grabbed my wrist. "You can't help them now." It was Jesus, who pulled me out of the abyss, and, suddenly, I was no longer in darkness. I was back in the light, but I felt no relief. My body trembled, and I could barely breathe. "Why?" I managed to stammer. Jesus looked at me, his eyes full of sadness. "Because they chose this." I wanted to argue, to say that no one would choose this kind of suffering, but deep down, I knew what he meant. People reject Jesus, live as if none of this matters, and when the time comes, it's too late. The weight of what I had just seen was crushing me, and then Jesus said something even more terrifying: "This is only the beginning." Although Jesus had pulled me out of the pit, I still felt something lurking in the darkness. I was not safe. I felt eyes on me, watching, waiting. It wasn't just one presence. There were many, dozens, hundreds, thousands. They hid in the shadows, beyond the light that Jesus enveloped me in. I turned my head slowly, and that was when I saw them. Dark, distorted figures with empty eyes that glowed with a sickly red shine. They were not human. They were something else, something ancient, something evil, demons. Their bodies flickered like smoke, shifting and distorting, but their eyes never left me. They stood in a vast circle, surrounding the light, unable to enter, but I knew what they wanted. They wanted me back. I could hear their voices. Some laughed, others whispered, some mocked. "Not yet, but soon. You think he will keep you forever? You are ours, Noah. You have always been ours." I wanted to cover my ears, but the voices didn't come from outside. They were in my head, pushing into my mind, filling it with doubt, fear, and despair. I looked to Jesus, desperate for answers, but his face was expressionless. "Don't listen to them," he said, his voice firm and steady. "But why are they here? Why do they know me?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. Jesus looked at me with sadness in his eyes. "Because every time you chose sin, they gained power over you. Every time you ignored me, they came closer. I wanted to deny it, But I couldn't. I had ignored him, lived as if none of this mattered, and now I saw the truth. The demons smiled. They knew that I knew, but Jesus wasn't finished yet. He raised his hand, and the demons screamed, retreating. Some disappeared into the void, others stayed, still watching, still waiting. You must understand, Noah, Jesus said. The battle is not just for your body, it is for your soul. Then everything changed, the darkness disappeared, and suddenly I was standing before something immense, stretching infinitely in both directions, tall, golden, radiating pure light, the gates of heaven. The moment I saw the gates, I felt something indescribable, a pull, as if my very soul was being drawn to them. It wasn't just a place, it was a home. But then I saw the other side, a shadow spreading across the horizon opposite the gates. It was deeper than darkness, stretching out like a void, and from within it, I heard the wails of countless souls. The contrast was unbearable, light and warmth on one side, cold and suffering on the other. I turned back to Jesus, but he was already walking forward. I followed him. As we approached, I saw figures standing before the gates, some praying, others pleading. That was when I saw something terrifying. Some were being dragged, an invisible but uncontrollable force, pulling them back into the shadows. They screamed, begged, but the gates did not open. They clawed at the ground, the air, anything to hold on to. I took a step back, trembling. Why? Jesus looked at me, his face full of sorrow. They never truly knew me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But they are calling your name, they are praying, I said. Jesus nodded. Many use my name, but few truly follow me. Their hearts were far from me. The gates stood firm. Those who belonged to him entered in peace. Those who did not were taken away, and I could do nothing but watch. The look in Jesus' eyes, I will never forget his eyes. I turned to Jesus, my mind racing. I had known him all my life, but never truly knew him. And now, he was standing before me, more real than anything I had ever experienced. His eyes didn't just look at me, they looked through me, beyond my words, beyond my excuses, right into the deepest parts of who I was. And for the first time, I understood what it meant to be completely known. I couldn't hide anything. Every lie, every sin, every time I ignored him, he saw it all. And yet, his eyes were full of love, not anger, not hatred, not disappointment, but love, overwhelming, unconditional, all-consuming love. I couldn't stand it. I fell to my knees, unable to speak. Jesus took a step forward. His voice was gentle, but full of authority. Noah, do you know why I brought you here? I shook my head. I don't know. He reached out his hand, and suddenly I saw flashes, images, memories, moments when I ignored his voice, moments when I chose my own path instead of his, moments when I hurt others, when I turned my back on him. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. Because I love you, Noah, Jesus said, and I don't want you to be lost. Tears streamed down my face. But I don't deserve this. I have failed so many times. Jesus smiled. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to follow me. And in that moment, I understood. It wasn't about earning my place, but choosing to follow him. Jesus took a step back, and suddenly, the ground beneath us changed, the sky darkened, the air grew heavy, and then I saw the future. The earth opened up, fires spread, storms swept through cities. I saw people running, screaming, crying out for help, but no one was listening. No one was coming. The destruction spread like a wave, covering everything in darkness. People fell to their knees, some in prayer, others in despair. And in the midst of it all, I saw distorted figures, demonic beings moving through the chaos, whispering lies, leading people further into the abyss. I turned to Jesus, my hands trembling. What is this? His voice was heavy. What is to come if they do not return to me? Terror gripped my heart. But people don't know. They don't understand. Jesus nodded. That is why I am sending you back. I didn't want to go, not after what I had seen. But then, Jesus said something that chilled me to the bone. Tell them, warn them, because soon the door will close. As soon as Jesus spoke, the vision changed. I was no longer looking at fire and destruction. I was looking at people, ordinary people living their lives as if nothing was wrong. They laughed, ate, worked, scrolled on their phones. Everything seemed normal, but then I saw what Jesus saw. Sin wasn't just around them, it was inside them. I watched as people gossiped, their words turning into dark smoke that enveloped those they talked about, suffocating them. I saw greed, men hoarding money, ignoring the cries of the poor, their hands dripping with something thick and black. I saw lust pulling people into chains without them realizing it. I saw lies crawling like snakes out of people's mouths, wrapping around those they deceived like nooses. And the worst part, no one seemed to care. They laughed, lived, ignored the warnings. Then Jesus raised his hand, and I saw something that made my heart stop. People were marked. Some had light radiating from them, pure and strong, but others, their foreheads were stained with darkness, an invisible seal only I could see. I wanted to warn them, tell them what was happening, but they wouldn't believe me, even if I tried. The worst part was that some of them went to church every Sunday, sang, prayed, listened to sermons, but their hearts were far from Jesus. Their faith was just a routine, a checklist. They thought they were saved, but they were not. Tears filled my eyes. Jesus, what happens to them? His voice was firm. Unless they turn to me with all their heart, they will not enter my kingdom. I felt my heart break inside. I always thought that believing in God was enough, but now I understood that it wasn't just about knowing His name, but truly knowing Him. Suddenly, the vision disappeared and I saw something new. A huge book floated before me, glowing with heavenly fire. I knew what it was even before Jesus spoke. The book of life, the book that contained the names of those who belonged to God, those who were saved. I held my breath as Jesus opened it. Pages turned one after another, covered in glowing names, names of people who had given their lives to Him. I recognized some names, family members, people from my church, but then I saw the blank spaces. Empty places where names should have been, people who thought they were saved, people who had been good, who had gone to church, who believed in Jesus, but who had never truly surrendered. My hands trembled. Why? Jesus replied, His voice heavy. They never gave me their hearts. They called my name, but never followed me. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. Names disappearing, people who were once faithful but had strayed. People who knew the truth but chose the world over Jesus. Their names were fading, dissolving into nothing. I couldn't breathe. Can they be saved? I asked desperately. Jesus turned to me, His eyes filled with sadness. As long as they have breath, they have a chance. But soon, time will run out. I felt sick. How many people think they are saved but are not? How many have no idea they are on the brink of losing their eternity? And then Jesus showed me something worse. I turned, and suddenly, we were no longer alone. A figure stood before us, shining brighter than the sun, its presence radiating authority, an angel. The angel's voice echoed, shaking the ground beneath our feet. The time is near. Judgment is coming. Many will be lost. My heart raced. I wanted to argue, to plead for more time for the world, but the angel continued. They mock the warnings, laugh at the truth, choose darkness over light, and when the door closes, they will beg for mercy, but it will be too late. I fell to my knees, desperate. Is there something we can do? I whispered. The angel looked at Jesus. Jesus nodded. Tell them, said the angel. Tell them to return before the door closes forever. A deep sadness filled my chest. I had seen what was to come, had heard the warnings, but knew that most people wouldn't listen. They would laugh, say we have time, say God is love, and would never send anyone to hell. They would continue living as if nothing was wrong until it was too late. Jesus spoke again, his voice gentle but full of power. "Tell them, Noah. Tell them what you saw." At that moment, I knew why I was sent back. Before I could ask anything else, everything changed. The light around me darkened, and a strange force pulled me back. "Wait," I cried. "I don't want to go." But it was too late. I felt my body again, its weight, the pain, the burning in my chest. I gasped for air, feeling like I was drowning. Voices screamed around me. "He's back. We have a pulse." I opened my eyes, my vision blurred by tears, bright lights, medical equipment, people hovering over me. I had returned, but I wasn't the same. The memories of what I had seen were etched into me. The faces, the screams, the book of life, the angel's warning. I tried to sit up, but a nurse gently pushed me back. "Noah, stay still. You were dead for 3 minutes." 3 minutes, that was all it took to see eternity. I looked around, desperate to tell them what had happened, but no one would understand. They would think I was hallucinating. But I knew the truth. I had been given a second chance, not for me, but for them, for everyone who needed to hear it before it was too late. The days after my return were the hardest. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes of what I had witnessed. The screaming souls, the book of life, Jesus' sad eyes, the angel's warning. The weight of it all crushed me. I tried to act normal around my family, but I wasn't the same. How could I be? Before, I cared about insignificant things. Social media, what people thought of me, entertainment. Now, none of that mattered, not after seeing what was to come. My parents thought I was traumatized by the accident. My friends joked that I had been touched by heaven and laughed. No one understood. I tried to explain, but their eyes glazed over as if they weren't ready to hear. That was when I realized the true battle. It wasn't just what I saw in eternity, it was what was happening here on earth. People weren't rejecting God because they hated him, they didn't care. They were too distracted, too caught up in their own lives to notice how much time was slipping by, and that terrified me more than anything. Because that was exactly how the people I saw in hell lived, ignoring the warnings, thinking they had time. I had been given a second chance, had seen the truth, and couldn't waste it. Jesus didn't bring me back just to return to my old life. He brought me back for a reason. I kept hearing his words in my head. "Tell them." So, I started to speak. First, to my family. My mother cried when I told her. My father listened but remained silent. My little brother didn't know what to say. Then, I told my friends. Some believed me, most did not. But I didn't stop. I wrote about it, talked about it, told people at church, at school, online. I didn't care if they laughed or thought I was crazy because this wasn't just a story, it was a warning. I told them about the people who thought they were saved but were not. I told them about the names disappearing from the book of life. I told them about the demons waiting for those who chose sin over God. I told them about Jesus, the way he looked at me, the way he loved me even though I didn't deserve it. The way he showed me it's not too late to come back, but soon it will be. Some listened, others did not, but that wasn't my job. My job was just to tell. If you're listening to this, I need you to pay attention. This isn't just my story, it's your warning. I died. I saw what happens after this life and was given a second chance. But not everyone will have one. I saw hell. It is not just for bad people, it's for anyone who ignores God, anyone who thinks they can live without him, anyone who rejects his love and chooses the world instead. Most people don't believe it. Most think, I'll fix my life later. But later is running out. I saw what's coming. Jesus showed me. He said the time is near, that people need to wake up before it's too late. I don't care if people think I'm crazy. I don't care if they ignore me. I did my job, I told you. Now, the choice is yours. Jesus is waiting. He has always been waiting, but soon the door will close, and when that happens, there will be no turning back. After coming back, I realized that the battle I witnessed in the spiritual realm was not only happening there, it was happening here, around us, every day. At first, I didn't notice. I thought I could go back to my normal routine while spreading the message Jesus gave me. But then, the attacks began. It started with nightmares, dark shadows whispering in my sleep, showing me visions of the pit, the screaming souls, the demons watching me. I'd wake up breathless, feeling like something was in the room with me. Then, the doubts came. Maybe it was just a hallucination, maybe you imagined it all, no one is listening, stop talking about it. I knew those thoughts weren't mine, they were whispers of the enemy, trying to silence me. And the more I talked about Jesus, the worse it got. I'd wake up completely paralyzed, unable to move, while a dark shadow stood in the corner of my room. I was under attack because I had seen the truth, because I was warning others, and the forces of darkness didn't want that. But then, I remembered what Jesus showed me. I saw the power of prayer, saw how the name of Jesus made the demons flee. So I stopped being afraid. The next time I felt a dark presence, I spoke his name. In the name of Jesus, leave. And it left, because the enemy has no power over those who belong to Jesus. That's when I truly understood, this world is not just flesh and blood, it is spiritual. Every moment, souls are being contested. Every choice we make, every decision, brings us closer to God or takes us away from Him. And the greatest trick of the enemy is to make people think they have more time. But I saw the truth. I saw what happens to those who ignore the warnings, and I won't let fear silence me because there is too much at stake. Jesus didn't show me these things for me to keep them to myself. He showed me because time is running out. I don't know the exact day or hour, but I know this, we are closer than ever. Look around, don't you feel it? The world is changing. Chaos is increasing, people are more divided than ever, sin is everywhere and no one cares. Jesus warned me about this. He said people would mock the truth, call evil good and good evil, pursue their own desires instead of turning to Him. And that is happening now. Some people think they can wait until they are older to follow God, others think just go to church is enough, but I saw the book of life. I saw names that weren't there. People who thought they were saved but never truly surrendered to Jesus. And when their time came, they were dragged away. I don't want that for you. Jesus doesn't want that for you. But the truth is He won't force you to follow Him. You have to choose. And the worst lie the enemy has ever told the world is that you have plenty of time. Because one day you will wake up and it will be too late. The door will be closed and all that will be left is regret. So please, don't wait. Don't ignore this. Don't tell yourself you'll think about it later because later might never come. Jesus is calling you now. Will you answer? After coming back, I realized that the fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. Every day was a battle against fear, doubt, and the darkness that tried to silence me. But every time I felt afraid, I remembered what Jesus showed me. I remembered His voice, His presence, the power of His name. And every time I spoke the name of Jesus, the darkness retreated. I saw the power of faith, the power of prayer, and how the truth of Jesus can dispel even the deepest darkness. I know what I'm saying is hard to believe. I know it seems impossible, but I lived it. I died and came back, and I was sent back with a purpose, to warn you. Time is running out. We are closer than ever. The changes in the world, the increase in chaos, the division among people, all of it is a sign of what's coming. And I can't stay silent. I saw what happens to those who ignore the warnings. I saw the souls being dragged into darkness. I saw the demons waiting for those who choose sin. Please, listen to what I'm saying. This isn't just a story. It's a warning. Jesus is giving you a chance, an opportunity to change, to turn to Him, to choose light over darkness. But this chance won't last forever. Soon, the door will close, and when that happens, it will be too late. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait until next week. Don't wait until next year. Do it now. Turn to Jesus now, while there's still time. Remember, Jesus didn't bring me back to live my life as before. He brought me back for a purpose, to spread his message, to warn people about what's coming. And I'm doing that now, telling you what I saw, what I experienced. I was given a second chance, and I'm using that chance to fulfill the mission I was given. So please, listen. Jesus is calling. He has always been calling. And now, the choice is yours.